Meiosis and the cellular basis of reproduction, part 1. First of all, we have to talk a little bit about the two types of reproduction that exist in nature: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is any situation in which the offspring get all of their genes from a single parent. So the offspring is essentially a genetic clone of the parent, and therefore there's no means of genetic recombination in asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is when offspring get their genes from two parents, and therefore the offspring represent a sampling of genes from each parent, and therefore represents a new unique combination of genes. So there is genetic recombination with sexual reproduction, which lends itself to genetic diversity in wild populations and species, which is necessary for natural selection and adaptation because you have to have something to select from. You have to have variation. Now, this is a brief overview of a typical life cycle of a sexually reproducing organism. Now, you would have the female and the male. They have somatic cells, body cells, which are diploid, D-I-P-L-O-I-D, which means that the chromosomes are paired. And the reason why our chromosomes are paired is because we have two parents. One set came from mom, one set came from dad. Now, the female produces the egg and the male produces the sperm. Now, eggs and sperm are gametes. Gametes are haploid, H-A-P-L-O-I-D, signified by the letter N, which is half the diploid number. So, for example, human somatic cells have 46 chromosomes arranged as 23 pairs, but human gametes have only 23 chromosomes. Now, fertilization produces a diploid zygote, which forms the basis of a new individual, and the cycle repeats itself. Now, back to our discussion of chromosomes. Because our chromosomes are paired, each pair is referred to as a homologous pair. And again, one would come from one parent, one would come from another parent, and likewise one would be donated to each gamete during reproduction. Now, there are two basic types of chromosomes we refer to as autosomes and sex chromosomes. Autosomes are basically all the chromosomes that aren't sex chromosomes. We have a total of 23 pairs of chromosomes. 22 of those 23 pairs are autosomes. That leaves the last pair as sex chromosomes, the X and the Y chromosome in our case. Now, an introduction to meiosis. It's got some similarities to mitosis and some differences as well. First of all, meiosis has two divisions, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Meiosis begins with one diploid parent cell and ends with 4 haploid daughter cells. The daughter cells are not genetically identical to the original parent cell, and they're not genetically identical to each other. And this will be picked up again in part 2.